The best $7.50 I have ever spent. What's the best money you have ever spent? $15 on a rice cooker. Best bloody thing in the kitchen. You just put the rice in it and it has a keep warm function, so when it's cooked, it'll just sit there for a while all nice and warm in its little cocoon until you're ready to eat it. For some reason, this description reminds me of a kitten. One time I was walking behind a store and a homeless man asked me for some money, so I gave him like $10 so he could get some dinner. A couple of weeks later I was about to be mugged and the homeless guy scared the guys away. I spent approximately $20 on a few Japanese drawing pens for my autistic son. He doesn't really socialize with anyone. He doesn't talk much either. When he got the pens he started drawing cartoons. He now draws cartoons every day and we both sit down and laugh our asses off reading them. Changed his life, I believe. He has agreed to let me post them on a website to share with the world. Best money I ever spent. Today I donated $20 to the local bird rescue lady. Apparently there's been a real influx of baby penguins and they eat like $30 worth of fish a week and are eating her out of house and home. Something to do with La Nina. Anyway, she's up to her eyeballs in penguins. I'm sorry, but after I read your username all I can think of is how you just donated $20 to TEPANGUIN of D00M. Spent $10.89 on a box of 300 glow sticks. Not just the best money I've ever spent, but the best decision I've ever made. I demand to know where I can purchase 300 glow sticks for that price. I spent around $8 on insurance for a rented car. Ended up totaling it. Didn't pay a dime. The rental company then gave me another car to drive back in. When I was a freshman at Ohio State, there was a homeless guy. Real gregarious cat, but you could tell he wasn't proud of having to beg. Always wore a purple hat and purple jacket. Anyway, I always give homeless people money when I can, so I gave this guy some change here or there for 3 or 4 months. Grand total of what I gave this guy couldn't have been more than $25. Anyway, I was waiting for Kota and he came up to me. I had my hand in my pocket to check and see if I had anything for him, but he stopped me. He said, "Hey, man, I just wanted you to know I got a job. I have a family to feed, so I had to do what I had to do. But I wanted to thank you for the help. A lot of these kids can be really awful, but you weren't. I really appreciate that. God bless." I tear up thinking about it. Remember, even if you may suspect someone isn't as down on their luck as they may seem, helping your fellow man leaves your karma untarnished, and it may help more than you realize. I know I had no idea I'd made such an impact, but there it is. My grandmother is on a fixed income, aren't most. Around her 80th birthday I had just received a new job and a huge income bump and I took her to Scotland, her birth country, for a week. I didn't get to do anything like get drunk in pubs or go hiking, but I did get to spend a week with my grandmother, taking her to places she remembered as a child, visiting with her distant relatives, and learning about the history of my family. It was worth every penny spent. I found a dog tied to pole, had been there quite some time and as a result was quite aggressive. Took her home and after a few days started noticing some health problems with her. Took her to the vet and spent $400 on vaccinations, tablets for a bladder problem and a new collar. She is a beautiful dog and even though at the time I didn't think she would be with me for long, it was the best money I spent. What's even better is after several attempts at finding her owner we have had no luck and the council granted me ownership. She is the reason I rush home at night and I'm happy to see her tail wagging and to hear her snorting at me when I come home. I once was at a CVS pharmacy when a special needs guy came into the store. He was clutching some cash and wanted to buy a watch. He kept asking the cashier if he had enough to buy this watch or that watch. She became annoyed and kept saying no, you don't have enough money for that. He picked another one out and she said no, you don't have enough money for that, and I said yes. He does have enough money for that. As a matter of fact, I said, I am going to buy him that watch. Both cashiers stared at me in shock. They rang up his sale and the guy looked at me and said happy birthday. It might have been his birthday and maybe that's why he had cash and wanted to buy a watch. But that happy birthday stuck with me from that day on. It doesn't matter what you've done in your life. You can make different choices and any day can be a birthday. I decided to be a better human after that day. I was in Canada and my friend was in Australia. I graduated from high school, got $1,000 from the government for having awesome grades, and I decided that university could freaking wait. I worked my butt off for 10 months at 2 minimum wage jobs at a movie theater in a crappy nowhere town. I was a concession bee and a night cleaner, working very awkward and conflicting hours. I got no sleep. I finally saved up enough money to fly to Australia and met my internet friend of 6 years. I lived with him for 3 months, and we got engaged in that time. Because of a $1,000 gift from the government, I was given the inspiration that I could do whatever I wanted with my life. I chose friendship and love, and I'm going for my Australian citizenship the 26th of January, 2013. We're celebrating our 4th wedding anniversary this May. Scumbag HS grad receives $1,000 from the government, uses it to flee the country. Honestly, the best money I've ever spent was $150 for 6 prepaid months of alimony, even though I turned out not to need that long because I met my husband around week 3. We lived less than 5 miles apart, but didn't go any of the same places, so I really think we'd never have met without it, plus being two fairly introverted people, I'm not sure we'd ever have met even if we had seen one another. The best selfless money I spent was buying the family in front of me at the checkouts Groceries. They were ahead of me and trying I figure out how to get their ATM card to work for the balance the food stamps wouldn't cover, and it kept being declined. The woman looked close to tears and was about to give up and leave without anything, so I reached over and swiped my card. She gave me the biggest hug and invited me to Thanksgiving, which was about a week later. I couldn't go because I was going to spend it with my family and told her as much, and she understood. She was really worried about how she'd find me to pay me back, but I told her to help someone else when she was able to, and that would be her repayment. It wasn't very much money, but they kept me there chatting and thanking me for about 10 minutes after my stuff had been rung up, paid for, and packed. Have you ever gotten news that makes the rest of the world lose focus and shift and fall away? My brother chatted me late one night. My little brother, stronger than I, so funny and incisive. He had swallowed the contents of a bottle of sleeping pills 2 days before. I went numb with the shock of it. I walked outside and screamed at the sky. There had been no warning I could remember. I knew he was alone in a new city. What I didn't know was the shambles his relationship had become. I bought a plane ticket to go visit my brother the next day. Our father joined us from another city. The weekend we spent was worth it in every way. We drank together, explored his new hometown, and spent a quiet day talking and crying together. I think we both believe in hope. Maybe each other a little. That plane ticket was the best money I have spent in a long time. Maybe ever. Was parking in London at a parking meter. My tax had run out but was in the post, so I needed to write a note saying the tax was paid and on its way. No pen though. Went into a nearby shop and they had Bics for sale. It was 75p for one, or £1 for a box of 100. So I bought the box. Now, 10 years later, whenever I need a pen I still have some left. Best £1 I ever spent. The $250 I spent on ZBrush. It saved my life kind of. It sat on a shelf for years as I had a bunch of life issues that left me unemployed and depressed. I had given up on art and design years ago, but one day an email popped in my box for my upgrade. I guess you get free upgrades for life. Anyway, I started to doodle a bit. One thing led to another and I ended up getting back into the creative stuff. Got myself an internship and pretty much turned my life around. Basically a couple years ago I was drinking myself to death after my fiance died. I gave up on the design/3D stuff and pretty much couldn't even look another person in eyes without bursting into tears. So a little bit of doodling reminded me of what I love, and with a bit of hard work I got sober, got employed, and somehow managed to go to work every day. And it really started with just fooling around in ZBrush. I don't really want to tell the whole story. It's still upsetting. Sorry, this version sucks. Your version doesn't suck. It was a really awesome story of healing from creativity. I'm terribly sorry for your loss. I tried a similar thing for an impoverished little elderly white man one time. He was asking me for spare change so he could buy food, so I said, come on, I'll buy you a few slices of pizza. In the half a city block it took to get to the pizza place, he stopped and asked for other people for change. tried to bum a cigarette off of someone else, was rude to the lady in front of us in the lineup, and just walked off and didn't even mutter a thank you when he got his 2 slices of pepperoni pizza. So now whenever someone asks me for spare change, I hunt them through the streets for sport. I feel kinda like a dong, all these wonderful stories of generosity, people helping people, and here I go and post about an ungrateful butt. Still, I like to think it brings a bit of balance. Some good deeds go unrewarded, as they do. Some are remembered and returned in kind, as we might hope, and some just blow up in our faces. Shouldn't make us afraid of going out on a limb, but we got away the risks. Not going to lie, $100 for a Garmin GPS. As someone who has problems with perpetually getting lost, that thing has changed my life. Buying a plane ticket home when I was in the Navy to go on emergency leave for my best friend's funeral. I just turned 19 a couple weeks before at the end of June. He'd turned 27 a few months back. He used to be the manager at a card miniatures gaming shop, Magic, Ego, DBZ, Versus, Warhammer, D&D, etc., where I'd hang out. Worked in junior high school before I started being more outgoing socially. He was how I'd always wanted my older brother to be at the time. A nerd like me, he was like my other older brother to me. Played Magic and Versus together, D&D, Legend of the Five Rings. We'd stay at the store well after close, and sunrise even. During the summers playing Battlefield 2 and City of Heroes, ordering pizza and just BSing. He found out he had cancer the previous winter. I'd left for boot camp the previous summer, and when I went home that winter on leave, he'd already started withering away. He was a big guy, 6 feet 3 inches, around 280-300, but he looked like he weighed half of that. They thought it was an iron deficiency at that point. When they found out, obviously did chemo and everything, but none of it worked. Just a brief remission for a couple weeks. I could never call him as much as I wanted or knew I should. So for me, being asked to be one of the pallbearers in my best friend's funeral, being able to finally see him again, and being able to finally say goodbye to someone who helped me grow so much as a person and start to be the outgoing person I am now, that was the best money I ever spent. He'd think his headstone was awesome though. It's pretty much a small boulder with a relief of a dragon carved into it. My mom always jokes that she paid $20 for my stepfather. They met on Match.com 10 years ago, and she had to sign up for a month of the pay option in order to respond to his message. He has brought our family so much love and joy. Funny to think about it all resting on a 20. In a similar vein, my mother wanted another baby and my father wanted a VCR. They made a deal, and now I get to tell my sister she is as valuable as a VCR. I had saved up 4 weeks while studying abroad so I could get this one game. I talked myself out of it in the end, however, since it was still about $60 and I thought it would be a waste even though I had been saving up forever. I had been to the store so often to buy gifts for friends, family that the workers there knew me and would have small conversations with me, something that I appreciated a lot. At least 2-3 times a week I'd go in and browse, look at the game, buy something for a friend and leave. One of the last times I go in, it's a used game store mostly. I had a list of games that my boyfriend wanted for birthday gifts and some books for friends. On the way to the cash register I just grabbed the game. I figured that since I wasn't going to be there much longer I deserved it. Go without food for a week or something to make up for it. I didn't need to, but I felt guilty buying myself anything. When I checked out, the lady did her usual chat, helped me on my Japanese, showed me the used games. They put them in the cases so you can't steal them, and rang me up. She smiled as she handed me the bag because I looked confused because it sounded way less than I expected. She didn't ring up the game. I got it for free because I had bought so many items there, and I even got a free coupon for about $15 to come back and spend more there, which I did later that day. Almost cried. I spent time working to be nice to people who weren't treated that great in a country where I didn't speak the language, and it got me the game I didn't think I deserved. I might not have spent the money, but I'll always remember that day. I was so happy. I found a vintage Fender Strat guitar center for $100, merely because it had received an amazing original paint job featuring all the planets in the solar system. For just $100 I got an amazing guitar which would normally cost thousands. That also has quite an original beauty and flair to it. Best deal I've ever gotten. I love that instrument dearly. But years from now some upstart kid will mock you for having an extra planet on it. Went on a mission trip, think helping not evangelizing, to Jamaica. Not the tourist Jamaica, but the part they don't show you where the vast majority of people live in poverty. Anyways, since we were white foreigners we had to have a guard on the property at night, which thinking back now I have no idea why I didn't question. His name was Kenneth aka Kenny and we got in the habit of calling him Kenny G and miming saxophones around him which he seemed to enjoy and fake sing for us. So one night I go out and I see Kenny looking super worried on his phone. Strangely almost everyone in Jamaica has a phone if not more than one. I ask him what's wrong and he says his son was at school and a stick went through his calf and the son was fine in the hospital but he needed antibiotics. The reason he was calling was trying to borrow money from his relatives to afford them. Since we were there on what was partly a vacation we had plenty of cash and we thought it was ridiculous that we would save money to buy some crappy little souvenirs when this incredibly nice man was trying to scrape together money to make sure his son didn't get an infection and die. So we got what was roughly $50, about $5 to $10 each, and we gave him a card that said thanks for being awesome. He looked at the card and smiled and said we were the best people he'd met that came to help. But he didn't see the money yet. So we said check inside the envelope and he saw the money. Almost instantly, this fully grown 6'4" Jamaican security guard began to cry and hug me and a friend. Easily the best use of money in my life thus far. TLDR. Saved an incredibly kind man's son from infection for $5-ish. I know that nearly nobody will believe me, but I had a sort of rags to riches story that happened to a homeless man that I befriended. I would walk to school every day as a child and would say hello to 5-6 of the same homeless men every day. They knew we were young and did not have much money. Instead of begging, they would politely say good morning with an extremely genuine smile on their face. There was a man named Eric that I would pass every day for nearly 2.5 years. When I knew him for about a year, I had a job working at a restaurant. Every day I would come back from work at 7:30 p.m. with anywhere from $50-$75 USD in my pocket, and every day I would give him the extra change that I had, if I had any. After another year or so, I never saw him again. The same spot he would sit every day. I couldn't believe that he had broken his habit. Well, 6 years later I get a call from my mother asking if I know a man named Eric. She had a tone in her voice that sounded like she thought he was a pedophile or something. At the time I didn't know who she was talking about, so I said no. Turns out, the man was working at some music industry and wanted to wire myself $5,000 Talk about the homeless man with a golden voice. He didn't record his own music, but he was a producer apparently. Well, I denied the payment and asked if I could have lunch with him. We now stay in contact on the regular. It's funny how the world works. One day my mom was really upset because my brother was talking about not letting her see her grandson. My brother is a jerk. She was bringing me to the grocery store to pick up a few things and she wanted to wait in the car. So I went in and got my groceries. In the floral department, they had several flower arrangements for Grandparents' Day, which I didn't know was a thing. I bought one for her and came out and surprised her with it. She promptly began to cry, which made me cry. I buy her flowers fairly often as a gift, but this one time was extra special, and it was like $8, so worth it. I live in Eastern European country where there is some beggars, but not too much of them. People in general live pretty poor. Average salary for person is around $700 and retired person gets about $260 pension. But we somehow managed to live pretty good. So one summer's day me and my friend are sitting in a restaurant outside and I see very small kid, around 9-10 years old, begging for money. A lot of these beggars are just scamming you. There is an older person who sends those kids for begging and then he collects the money from them. So me and my friend decide to approach this kid and offer him to go to supermarket and shop for groceries that he needs. Typical answer that you get is I only need money and they just refuse. This kid says okay, that would be nice. That threw us off a little. So we go to the supermarket and I say buy whatever you want to eat. Candy, meat, bread, etc. I see this kid takes the cheapest hot dogs pack, some bread, milk, vegetables, water. I remind you it was the cheapest products in the market. Although I said a few times don't take the cheapest ones, take whatever you like. While we are shopping we ask this kid how he lives, why he is begging. I was shocked by the answer. Kid said that his father is missing. I guess left the family for a few days after the fight with his mom. Also the mum is not feeling well. My guess here is that she is beaten. That's common in poor families. And he and his younger sister are very hungry. That's why he went out to beg for money so he could buy some food. I was crushed to hear in what situation his family is. But the kid looked like he is fine. He was good kid. He even refused to buy candy because it's not healthy for you. After I paid for his groceries he just said thank you and went home. It was the best $11 I spent. I wish I could have spent more. TLDR. Kid begs for money in the street. We offer to go to supermarket and buy him groceries. He tells us sad story about his family. I spend $11. For a mere $7.50 I got an I love you from a stranger. You've clearly never been to Thailand. It's much cheaper there. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.